What if running from danger leads you straight into the arms of the only man who can save you? The locomotive hissed like a wounded iron beast as it crawled into Dusty Creek Station. The sky above New Mexico was a sharp, endless blue that made the red land below look even harsher. Clara Mayfield stepped down from the train, her boots sinking into the dry wooden planks of the platform. She stood there for a moment, holding her small leather valise close to her chest. She looked nothing like the world she had just entered. She was only 19, soft-handed, pale-faced, and wrapped in a dark wool traveling dress far too heavy for the blistering heat. But she was here for one reason. She was a runaway. The air smelled of coal smoke, dust, and something wild she couldn't name. It was nothing like Philadelphia with its trimmed gardens and quiet stone walkways. Out here everything felt too big, too loud, too real. Every heartbeat felt like it echoed across the desert. Inside the lining of her corset were her mother's jewels and a thin stack of bills. They were all she had left. They were the price of her escape, the price of defying her father, and the price of refusing Theodore Blackwood. Even thinking his name made her throat tighten. Blackwood was twice her father's age. A powerful railroad tycoon with cold eyes and a grasp that squeezed the life out of everything he touched. Her father had signed a contract to give her away to him, calling it a brilliant match. But Clara had seen the truth in Blackwood's stare. He didn't want a wife. He wanted possession. He wanted obedience. He wanted her soul. So Clara had taken her mother's jewels, slipped out in the middle of the night, and boarded the first train heading west. She bought a ticket to the furthest place she could afford, Dusty Creek. But stepping onto that dry, lonely platform made her realize just how far from safety she was. People stopped and stared. A young woman in a fine traveling dress was as strange here as a pearl dropped in the sand. A group of rough men leaned in the shade of the station building. Their eyes followed her with slow, greedy interest. Clara's heart hammered. She clutched her valise tighter and stepped forward. She only needed to find the hotel and hide until she could figure out what to do next. "Well now," a voice slurred. "Look what the train dragged in." 3 men stepped in front of her. The leader was thick-shouldered with greasy hair and a stained shirt. His yellowed grin stretched wide as he looked her up and down like a wolf surveying prey. "You're a pretty little bird," he drawled. "Lost, ain't you?" Clara tried to step around him, but the men shifted, blocking her path. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I'm just looking for the hotel." The leader, Jed, spat tobacco near her boots. "We can show you some real Western hospitality. Better than any hotel." He reached toward the lace at her collar. Clara jerked back, fear shooting through her. She looked around desperately. The station seemed too far away, the street too empty, the sun too bright. She was alone. And these men knew it. Her breath came fast. Her throat dried. The desert suddenly felt like it was swallowing her whole. "Please don't," she whispered. Jed laughed. "Don't be shy, little bird." Then a new voice cut through the heat like a knife. "I believe the lady told you to leave her be." It was calm, low, dangerous. The men froze. Clara turned. He stood a few feet away, silent as the desert itself. A man in worn denim, dusty boots, and a sun-bleached hat pulled low over a weathered face. He wasn't bulky, but every inch of him was solid, grounded and steady, like he belonged to the land. His eyes were what struck her most, clear blue, cold and sharp like winter air. He didn't draw the gun at his hip. He didn't need to. His presence alone sent a warning. Jed sneered. "This ain't your business, Caldwell." "A lady in distress in my town is my business," the man, Caldwell, replied. "You can walk to the saloon or you can walk to Sheriff Dalton's jail. Pick fast." The wind stirred. Dust swirled around their boots. Jed's face twisted as pride fought fear. But even he could sense the danger in Caldwell's stillness. With a curse, he shoved past his men. "Come on. Ain't worth the trouble." They disappeared into the saloon. The silence that followed was heavy. Clara felt her knees weaken. Her breath shook. Her rescuer stepped closer. His face was strong, lined from sun and years, with a thin, pale scar cutting through his brow. He looked like a man who had seen too much and spoken too little, a man who carried his burdens quietly. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked. Clara nodded, unable to speak. He tipped his hat. "Welcome to Dusty Creek. Hotel's down the street. Martha will take care of you." "Thank you," she finally managed. He shrugged lightly. "Men like that smell fear. Don't let 'em." But he said it gently, not as a rebuke, as a warning. He took a step back, ready to leave. "Wait," she blurted. He paused, turning toward her. Silence stretched between them. "Your name," she said. I didn't catch it." "Ethan Caldwell," he replied. "I own the Triple C ranch north of here." "I'm Clara," she hesitated. She couldn't reveal her real name. Clara Winter. His eyes lingered on her a moment, long enough to let her know he didn't believe her, but he didn't challenge her. "Get some rest, Miss Winter," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "Dusty Creek's not kind to the unprepared." Then he walked away, disappearing into the heat of the street. Clara stood there, watching him go, feeling both safer and more lost than she ever had. One thing was clear. Her new life had begun, and Ethan Caldwell had already become part of it. Clara woke the next morning with a tight knot in her stomach. Dusty Creek looked smaller in the daylight, but no kinder. The sun pressed against the wooden buildings, making them look bleached and tired. She walked down the stairs of Martha's boarding house, her steps slow and unsure. Martha noticed. "You're too pale, child," she said. "Eat something. You'll need strength out here." Clara tried, but the toast on her plate felt like paper. Her thoughts kept circling back to the sheriff's cold stare, the way he had looked at her hands, at her dress, at her fear. And then Ethan Caldwell, quiet, strong, unreadable, flashed in her mind again. He had helped her, but he was a stranger, and she was hiding a truth that could destroy her if it surfaced. Before she could say anything more, the front door swung open. Sheriff Dalton stepped inside. His boots thudded heavily on the floor. His eyes found Clara. "Miss Winter," he said, his tone mild but probing. "Traveling alone is dangerous. You sure you're not running from something?" Clara forced her voice to stay steady. "No, Sheriff, I just needed a new start." He studied her, long and hard. "A new start leaves tracks," he said quietly. "Hard to keep secrets in a small place like Dusty Creek." Her heart pounded, but she nodded politely. Martha's sharp look sent the sheriff on his way. But his warning clung to Clara like dust on her clothes. After breakfast, Martha came to her table. "The Hendersons need help," Martha said. "It's tough work, but honest work. You want a chance to stay here? That's how you start." Clara nodded. She needed money. She needed a purpose. She needed anything that made her less noticeable. The Henderson farm was a mile east of town, and the work was harder than anything Clara had ever imagined. Mrs. Henderson was stern and unimpressed. She pointed at chores like she was swatting flies. "Beat them rugs, scrub the floor, water the garden, and don't faint in the sun." Clara pushed herself through every task. Her soft hands blistered, her muscles burned. Dust clung to her sweat until she looked more like a farmhand than a runaway. But at night, alone in her small room at Martha's, she cried quietly into her pillow. She felt small, lost, afraid. 2 weeks passed in the same painful rhythm. Then, one afternoon, while buying soap at the general store, Clara heard something that froze her blood. Sheriff Dalton was speaking with the store owner. "A telegram from Santa Fe came in," the sheriff said. "Railroad tycoon Theodore Blackwood is offering a reward for a runaway woman. Name is Clara Mayfield. Took family jewels. Stole money." Clara felt the world tilt around her. She kept her back to them, her fingers gripping the soap so hard it almost snapped in half. "That's serious trouble," the store owner whispered. Dalton's voice lowered. "A woman like that, she'll be scared. She'll lie. She'll hide. But she'll show herself one way or another." Clara walked out of the store on shaking legs. She didn't dare look back. Dust swirled around her boots as she hurried down the street. The heat pressed on her chest like a weight. Her secret wasn't safe. Not here, not anywhere. That night, she sat alone at her small wooden table. Her hands were raw. Her body ached. But her heart hurt most. She had run so far and so fast, yet her past was catching up. Martha knocked once and walked in. "Eat," she said, setting a bowl of stew on the table. Clara tried, but her appetite was gone. "You can't keep living like this," Martha said firmly. Then her voice softened. "Ethan Caldwell came by today." Clara's breath caught. "He asked about me." "Not exactly. He asked if I knew anyone looking for work at his ranch." Martha folded her arms. "His housekeeper passed some months back. He's been trying to run the house alone." Clara didn't speak. Martha leaned in. "The Triple C is quiet, far out. And Ethan is a good man. Hard, but fair. He saw you that first day. He knows you're scared. And he didn't ask why." Clara looked down at her blistered hands. She thought about the sheriff's warning, Blackwood's reach, the Hendersons' constant criticism, the long, lonely nights. She thought about Ethan Caldwell's steady blue eyes. "What do I have to do?" Clara whispered. "Meet him at sunup," Martha said. "He leaves for his ranch early." The next morning, before the sun touched the horizon, Clara found Ethan beside his supply wagon. His silhouette was dark against the pale sky. He looked at her only once, long and quiet, before tossing her valise into the back. "Climb up," he said. She did. The wagon creaked forward. The horses snorted. And the town of Dusty Creek shrank behind them until it was nothing but a memory. The land stretched out forever. Rolling plains, low hills, scattered rocks catching the rising sun. Clara watched the light spill across the earth. Each mile felt like a step away from danger, and each mile felt like a step deeper into the unknown man sitting beside her. When the Triple C Ranch appeared, it rose from the land like it belonged there. Strong, solid, weathered by seasons and storms. Ethan reined the horses to a stop. "This is it," he said. Clara climbed down, her breath caught between fear and hope. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and coffee. It was a man's place, practical, simple, untouched by a woman's hands. She stood still as Ethan faced her. "I need someone who works hard," he said. "Someone who doesn't lie. Someone who won't bring trouble." The words hit her like stones. Clara swallowed. "I can work," she said. "I can learn. Please, I just need a chance." Ethan studied her, long enough that she feared he would tell her to leave. Then he nodded. "You can stay," he said. "But the truth always comes out here. That's the law of the land." She felt tears sting her eyes, but not from fear, from relief. Clara Mayfield, runaway bride, had found her refuge. Clara Winter, housekeeper of the Triple C, had been born. Clara's first weeks at the Triple C were the hardest of her life. She woke before sunrise and collapsed long after dark. She cooked for 6 hungry ranch hands, scrubbed dust from every corner of the house, washed clothes by hand, and fought every day to keep up with the endless work that came with living in the middle of the open West. But she didn't give up. Slowly, her soft Philadelphia hands grew calloused. Her shoulders grew stronger. Her steps became steady. The girl who had run in fear was becoming a woman who could stand her ground. And Ethan saw it. He didn't say much, but she often caught him watching her from across the yard or from the doorway of his office. His blue eyes held something she couldn't understand at first. Something soft. Something surprised. Something hopeful. Clara didn't dare think about it too deeply. She was here to survive, not to fall in love. But the West had its own plans. One afternoon, Ethan found her outside, watching the ranch horses graze in the warm light. "You ever ridden before?" he asked, stepping beside her. "Only side saddle," she admitted. He nodded once. "That won't help you out here." He saddled a gentle mare, Dusty, and lifted Clara onto her back. When his hands brushed her waist, her breath caught. The touch was simple, firm, and careful, but it felt like a spark ran through her. Ethan taught her how to sit, how to hold the reins, how to guide the mare with her legs instead of fear. His voice was steady and calm. And when her nerves broke and she started to panic, he stepped close and rested a hand on her knee. "Trust yourself," he said softly. "You're stronger than you think." Clara believed him. Little by little she became part of the ranch. Silas left her fresh water every morning. Jesse thanked her for meals. The men started treating her like family, and in the quiet moments, Clara felt herself drawn more and more to Ethan. His steady walk, his quiet way of listening, his deep sense of honor. But something about him stayed locked away, like a closed door. Then the storm came. Thunder growled over the plains. Black clouds rolled down from the mountains. Rain hammered the ranch house so hard the walls shook. Clara went from room to room checking windows when a crack of thunder exploded overhead. She stumbled, gasping. A strong hand caught her shoulder. "It's just noise," Ethan murmured. She turned, and he was right there, close enough that she saw the small scar in his eyebrow, the tired lines at the corners of his eyes. The lantern light flickered between them. The storm raged outside, but inside, everything went still. "I'm not used to storms like this," she whispered. "No one gets used to them," he said. Something broke inside her. The weight of her secrets. The fear of being hunted. The months of running. It all became too heavy. "My name isn't Clara Winter," she said. He didn't move, didn't blink. "It's Clara Mayfield," she choked out. "The woman Blackwood is looking for. I'm his runaway fiancé." For a moment she expected him to pull away, to look at her like a liar, a burden, a problem. Instead, Ethan nodded once. "I know." Her breath left her. "You knew?" "I suspected," he said. "I saw the notice, and I saw your fear." Quote, "Then why did you let me stay?" she whispered. "Because when I found you on that platform," he said quietly, "I didn't see a thief or a runaway. I saw a woman fighting for her life." He stepped closer. "And I don't turn my back on people who are fighting." Tears slid down her cheeks, not from fear this time, but something deeper, something warm. Before she could speak, a sharp cracking sound echoed through the hallway. The storm had blown open a window inside a room Clara had never entered, the locked room. Ethan unlocked the door, and Clara followed him inside. Dust sheets covered old furniture. A rosewood piano stood in the center, its wood faded. "My mother's room," Ethan said quietly. For the next few days, they repaired it together. Clara cleaned the piano's wood. Ethan fixed the broken pieces. As they worked, he told her about his mother, about her music, her kindness, and the grief he carried. He unlocked his heart a little at a time. When the piano was finally restored, Clara sat and played a soft melody she remembered from childhood. The notes filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. When she finished, she looked up, and Ethan was standing right in front of her. He cupped her hand gently. His thumb brushed the calluses she had earned. He leaned down, his face close enough that she felt his breath. Her heart pounded. For a heartbeat, she thought he would kiss her, but then he stopped. His eyes lingered on her lips, full of longing, full of restraint, and he stepped back. Not yet, not while danger still chased her. The next morning, ranch hands rode out to gather cattle scattered by the storm. Clara watched from the porch. Ethan looked back once, holding her gaze for a long moment. Hours later, she heard frantic hoofbeats. Silas rode in carrying Jesse on a makeshift stretcher. Behind them, 2 men dragged someone unconscious. Clara froze. It was Ethan. Blood soaked the bandage around his head. His shirt was torn, his breathing shallow. "He saved Jesse," Silas said grimly. But then the flood grabbed him. Clara's world tilted. She ran inside with the men and helped carry Ethan to his bed. She cleaned his wounds. She stitched his gash with trembling hands. She pressed cool cloths on his burning forehead. She stayed awake all night, praying, whispering, begging. Around dawn he stirred. His hand shot out and gripped her wrist, strong despite the fever. "Clara," he rasped. "I'm here," she whispered. "Don't let them take you," he murmured. "I can't lose you, not you." Tears streamed down her face. In his delirium, she heard the truth he never spoke. The truth she had been too afraid to believe. He loved her, and she loved him. "Rest," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. "I'm not leaving." 2 days later, Ethan awoke fully, weak but alive. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he looked at her with clear eyes. "Clara," he said softly, "marry me." It wasn't a grand proposal. It wasn't poetic. It was pure, honest, necessary. He wanted to protect her, stand with her. Claim her not as property, but as his equal. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, Ethan." They married 2 weeks later in front of the stone fireplace. Clara wore the dress she had sewn herself. Ethan stood tall beside her. When they kissed, it was slow and tender, his hands holding her like she was something too precious for this world. That night, in their room, Clara trembled as she unbuttoned her dress. She felt small, inexperienced, afraid she wouldn't be enough. But Ethan stepped close, touched her cheek, and kissed her forehead. "You're perfect," he whispered, "exactly as you are." And in his arms, Clara believed it. Their peace didn't last long. Riders came. 4 men approached the ranch, 3 armed, and 1 dressed in a fine city suit. Clara froze on the porch as the lawyer dismounted and said the name she feared most. "Theodore Blackwood wants his bride returned." Ethan stepped out beside her, cold and steady. "She's my wife," he said, "and you're not taking her anywhere." But the lawyer unrolled a contract signed by her father, a contract claiming Clara as Blackwood's property, a contract that said she belonged to him. Clara stepped forward. "I belong to no one," she said, her voice strong. "Not anymore." The lawyer's mouth twisted. "Then there will be consequences." Ethan stepped between them. "She's mine," he said, "and I protect what's mine." Later in the season, Blackwood returned, not with 3 men, but with 20. Guns, horses, fire. He meant to take Clara and burn the ranch to the ground. Ethan gathered his men. Clara loaded rifles. They locked doors. They braced windows. And when Blackwood shouted for her to surrender her freedom, Clara stepped beside Ethan, raised her rifle, and said the words that changed everything. "I'm not property. I'm home." The battle that followed shook the land. Gunfire roared. Smoke filled the air. Men fell. Clara fought side by side with Ethan, reloading rifles, firing from the windows, refusing to let the past take her future. When Blackwood forced his way closer, when he raised his pistol at Ethan, Clara lifted her rifle and aimed straight at the man who had hunted her across the country. Her shot spun him in the saddle. Ethan's shot ended it. Blackwood fell in the dust, and with him fell every chain he ever tried to wrap around her life. When the sheriff arrived, he surveyed the scene and said the only words that mattered. "You defended your home. That's the law out here." The town helped rebuild the Triple C. The ranch became stronger than ever, and Clara, no longer a runaway, became the heart of the ranch. Months later, as the sun rose, Clara took Ethan's hand and placed it over her stomach. "It's not over," she whispered. "It's just beginning." Ethan pulled her into his arms, his voice soft against her ear. "No more running," he said. "You're home now." And she was, forever.